Donnie, welcome to the Miami Fitness Factory show. Honestly, as a DBC certified student, I'm honored to be with you today and have you on my show to discuss different topics with you. But before we start, let me real quick introduce who's Donnie Raimon, although I'm sure lots and lots of people worldwide know who you are. First of all, you're a Navy SEAL and you got an engineering background that we all know about. And you're now the world's leading biomechanist and the founder of DBC Fitness in downtown Miami. You guys train world-class athletes, definitely you and Coach David Alexander. You train world-class athletes like Lebron James, Dwayne Wade, Chris Paul, and lots of other NBA and NFL athletes. Coach Donnie, hello.
Good morning, or it's afternoon for you, I guess.
Yeah, it's like a seven-hour difference with Miami here in Beirut. But I mean, it's a good afternoon time.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Coach. First of all, let me start off with this question. How did Donnie Raimon become the reference to all elite athletes and coaches? They look up to you when it comes to the strength and conditioning industry.
I think what happened was, this was almost 20 years ago. There was a little bit of a gap going on between the medical fitness industries and some biomechanics. So even when I was still active duty in the military, I had a neck injury from a parachute that opened too quickly. Okay. And doing physical therapy, and they weren't quite solving the problem, and it was getting worse and worse. So I actually ended up on limited duty and things like that. And then somebody told me about a neuromuscular massage therapist that I went to, and he worked out a lot. He was a boxer. He was an athlete as well. I went to see him, and he did like a very basic musculoskeletal assessment on me, and realized that he found something in my neck that other people didn't find. And when he tried to explain it to me, using my engineering background, I knew exactly what he was talking about. And he was quite shocked by that. So at that point, he asked me if I had ever heard of biomechanics, and I said no, of course. And he said, well, you should look into it. And when I looked into it, it became clear to me that this was a field that was probably prominent 20, 25 years ago at universities. And it kind of just went down by the wayside. Not a lot of people were making money at it. So a lot of universities switched their biomechanics programs to biomedical engineering programs. And it just gradually started getting away from sports. And I think realistically, I just started applying this information that I discovered back into the sports industry, and it was really filling a gap that exists. The gap's getting smaller now, but not quite as quickly as we'd like it to.
Sounds good, Coach. Good to hear that small story. And Coach, let's go back a little bit, and I would like to ask how you and David Alexander, of course, started your DBC facility in Miami. Like, how do you two gentlemen complement each other?
David is the charismatic, flamboyant kind of guy.
Definitely.
He's a personality. The people love him.
Right.
So some of the athletes that you mentioned that I worked with, they actually come to DBC to see David, and then they get funneled through me first. So I do their assessments. I kind of find out mechanically what's going on with their body. Then I prescribe them a program, and then I turn them back over to David. Or if it's something that he's not comfortable with, then I'll stick with that athlete for as long as it takes until he's happy with where they are. And then he really likes to do, David can do assessments and things like that, but he really prefers the sports performance side.
Okay.
I really enjoy the diagnostic side. So it's kind of just, it's a 1-2 step process that I like step 1 and he likes step 2.
Sounds good. I'm actually excited to, I'm as a physical therapist, I would like to also go and witness your level 2 certification. I was going on March 20th, but you know, the COVID-19 issue got me postponed, hopefully to see that soon and learn from you guys more and more. I want to also hit on an important topic. Like every coach nowadays is claiming an expert in biomechanics, you know, and this is probably a big misunderstanding and a big misconception happening in the market. I want you please to try and point out why a 2-day online certification doesn't make a trainer a biomechanist.
So what you need is a background. If you look at the university's websites, like I've posted screenshots from many universities' websites about their biomechanics program, and what you'll first notice is the biomechanics program is part of the engineering school. So to be, an advanced biomechanics, you have to have some engineering, some physics, some advanced mathematics, and a lot of people don't have that these days. So what happens, and we're seeing in universities now, is a lot of, I'm sure you might have taken it, a lot of people, physical therapists and some occupational therapists, some athletic trainers, they're getting an introductory course to biomechanics that's non-mathematical, and that's to expose them to what the field of biomechanics is. But what's happening is some people are forgetting that that was just an introductory course. So now they're getting an introduction to it even over the weekend. Like our course gives you an introduction to it. It doesn't do any calculations. It doesn't get into the advanced part of it.
Right.
It's just an awareness of the field, which we think is enough, just to let people know, hey, when you're considering things and you're prescribing exercises, you need to know what goes into that. You don't have to know the technical side of it. You just have to be aware that it exists, and that biomechanists at the research level or practical level that came out of the engineering schools understand that tensions and forces and compressive forces and shear forces and moments and how movements can be calculated. Because when you understand how movements can be calculated and you see a basic movement, you can tell without having to do calculations that that's a good or a bad movement. It's not respecting the architecture of the joints. It's causing unnecessary friction. It could be causing too much range of motion. It could be causing too little range of motion, putting excessive stresses on the ligaments, on the cartilages, and things like that. So it's, to be a biomechanist is much more than that. So the introductory level courses are great. They're fantastic, but, it doesn't turn you into a biomechanist.
Appreciate that, Donnie. Please, talking about biomechanics and those corrective adjustments, talk about Dwayne Wade walking into your facility with the back pain he had and the injuries he had, and then you did the necessary adjustments, and then he had one of his best seasons back then. Can you talk about that, please?
Yeah, that's become a common thing at DBC. We're getting a lot of veteran athletes that their careers are starting to decline, but it's not because they don't have the motivation. Things that they've been suffering from injuries for years, and they think it's normal. And we're getting them. They come in, we do an assessment, we find things that are quite obvious with them, because when you measure joint ranges of motion, that can tell you if there's a loose muscle or a tight muscle. But where we're going with that is if there's something that's affecting the dynamics, and when I mean dynamics, I mean the engineering part of it, when things are moving relative to one another. When you can see that someone's back is misaligned, and you start to realize what the compressive forces do there, and then you can say, okay, this misalignment is causing excess friction here, it's causing too much compression there, it's causing too much tension here. And the complicated part about, especially the spine, if you will, is that it's three-dimensional because it has curvatures in it. Right. So if you don't understand that the three-dimensional curvatures, and there are three different curvatures in the spine, if those things are under compression or some sort of stress when they're not supposed to be, then it's kind of like driving down the road with a tire that's malaligned. There's going to be excessive friction on one surface of the tire, and that particular surface is going to wear out quicker than it should have. So we really just, those are some of these alignments, dynamic motion and static alignments have certain tensions, shear forces, moments in them just against the force of gravity. And if you don't understand that, when it can just be a little bit of off, it'll show friction or wear or excessive stresses at a certain point instead of being distributed throughout an entire surface. And just correcting those relieves some of the pressure. And even though this can be done on every joint in the body, So when we're kind of correcting these malalignments and length and tensions and making sure the moments and things like that are back to normal, because these things have been researched for a long time in biomechanists and anatomists, they know how the body's supposed to function. It's a side effect of the mechanics. Everything
Okay.
starts to recover on its own. So it's not even a specific protocol, or we're discovering something that nobody else has discovered. We're just using the medical literature matched with the mechanics, and it's just creating, it's allowing the body to heal itself, and things just clear up.
Cool. Donnie, since you're wearing the level 2 certification course T-shirt, let me ask you, first of all, I'm consider myself lucky to be part of your system and your DBC leveling certifications. Please talk how your certification is shifting this industry into a more of an assessing and scientific based environment.
Yeah. So what we've tried to accomplish with our assessment is, uh, you know, 90% of the people can get, you can see issues with them. You know, if somebody has a bad squat, has a bad lunge, their gait isn't great. A lot of times you can see that, and sometimes it can be corrected. But what happens is, if there's something that's outside of the norm, and there are many things medically that are, the symptoms are the same, or what you run into is some of the mechanical things can seem the same, but there's always the possibility it can be the exact opposite. So a lot of times what we've done with the assessment is we're looking to cater to that 1 or that 10% that isn't getting solved by a simple visual inspection, or by some basic movement screenings. So when you get down to it, if you start thinking about kinetic chains and kinematic links from that perspective, you can see the same aberrant postures and movements from different sides of the kinetic chain. So, you know, you could have a problem with your ankle, say your ankle's collapsed or your arch is collapsed, or you have something like that, and that's creating a knee valgus, and that's creating the internal rotation of the femur, you know, but that's coming from the foot. But you can also get the same dysfunction coming from the hip. If the femur's internally rotated, that will also look like a knee valgus. That'll also look like an inverted ankle. That'll also look like a collapsed arch in the foot. So you can kind of make a guess at which one it is by some basic assessments, but at the end of the day, if your guess is wrong, then if you don't realize that it could be the other thing, the assessment identifies which one it is before you even go to try to do a correction. So you know, to a much more precise analysis, what the exact problem is, and then you can target that problem and correct it much more quickly, much more concisely than by the other methods.
Sounds good. Donnie, my next question is related more to towards your character. I mean, we all know that you know stuff, you know, you have lots of knowledge, but my question is, you coached LeBron James for a while and saved him from his major back issues. But my question is, why is Donnie that humble? Because I'll quote you saying, I did not do much. LeBron is a phenomenal athlete. I mean, at the end of the day, you saved him from his back issues. So first of all, let me send my respects to this humble attitude. But this industry we're living in, especially the strength and conditioning in this industry, is full of ego. I saw the opposite with whatever articles I read about you and when I met you live. So can you talk about that, please?
I think that's a two-pronged question. Number one is, like I always say, I didn't invent any of this. So it's not some kind of system that I developed. This information is out there in abundance, but the problem we have is a lot of people don't have the background or education to read it when they. There's a lot of people now that are using Google Scholar and things like that to read research articles. And there's been quite a few people that are posting things and using references, which makes it sound really scientific. But what happens is they don't quite understand the article. You know, there's a lot of math in it. There's some engineering terminology that they might not have. So what I'm saying is, I can't take credit for information that I read. So it's not really a system that I developed. And the other part of that was when I work with some people that are significantly smarter than me, and they've helped me along the way. So I don't think I'd be where I am today if it wasn't for the help of those people. So I kind of feel now, so that was the first part of it. Now the second part of it is this is such an easy thing to do, I believe. The system that we're using, which we didn't even create, we're just using the information that's out there, we think is very reproducible because I've been teaching it to the DBC trainers. I taught it to some other people before, and they're having great success with it as well. So we think it's easily reproducible, and we think it's something that's missing. So we don't really care about going out there and say, oh, look what we did. What we'd like to do is share it with everyone and say, hey, look what you can do. And I don't want to create a separation between us and some of these other people by attacking them on social media or criticizing them, because we just want to convert everybody over to the more scientific side behind it. And I don't know why some people think that's an unreasonable expectation. You know, if you read a paper and the paper doesn't say what you said, you know, you should be more open to that and say, oh, thank you for that. But I think human nature is if you say something wrong and somebody points it out, a lot of people get angry, defensive, and things like that. And there's a lot of people take sides. So, for example, Lebron has posted some things on his Instagram, and some of our other athletes were. And, you know, as you mentioned, when I got with LeBron, he had some major physical limitations. And
Right.
even performing exercise that we're trying to overcome those physical limitations, you know, people started blaming him. People started blaming me. They started blaming the therapist, saying, oh, look at that. That's garbage movement. And it's like, well, of course it is. We're trying to overcome that garbage movement. So he knows it. We know it. Everybody knows it. But then people start taking sides. And even people that were starting to defend me and him had it wrong as well.
Right.
So it was one of those things where, like, of course he moves like that. But you just don't know. You don't know what his issues are. You don't know what that specific exercise was for. So I don't think it does any good to go out there and just argue with these people, because now, you know, I never had Instagram until David made me get it for DBC. But, you know, now there's people with burner accounts. There are people with that just go out there and troll other people. Right. I don't have time to discuss that with people. And then there's people, even when you explain things to them, half of them say, thank you for telling me that. And the other half are just like, you know, they tell you to go screw yourself. So, you know, we're just going to put the information out there. Hopefully, the more people we get like you that are coming in, you know, highly successful people already, and say, hey, look, these guys show us all the research. They show us all the literature searches that they've done. Like, these are some of these things that we put out there that other people are saying are controversial, is like, you haven't read the literature. When I have 100 articles from several different universities, from orthopedic surgeons, that match the biomechanics literature, that's not really subject to your opinion anymore. Right. Those are kind of the facts. And a lot of these things are out there, and most people just don't have access to that level of literature, or professional journals, that they don't see this. So it's kind of like, listen, we're just showing you what's out there. You know, if you want to be divisive about it and stick to your guns because, you know, some popular internet influencer said it, you know, that's great, but you're going to fall behind.
I mean, hope that message goes through to all the younger coaches, you know, to hear whatever the Donnie Raimon is saying. I mean, that's a great message. I hope that younger coaches would listen and follow that. I'm sure they will. Donnie, after all your successes you've done and still doing, since your days at South Beach in your smaller gym, I guess, and then now at DBC with the major athletes, what's Donnie's drive to wake up every day and do the same thing again and again?
I really, really like the problem solving. So someone who ended up going to college 3 different times, I started to take courses and I started to have enjoyment. So the first time I went to college way back in 1985, I didn't take my education seriously. I took the courses hoping just to get a grade and then graduate, right?
Okay.
And when I was a computer scientist, some of the computer languages I learned back then don't even exist anymore. So what I found is when I went in the military, because of the computer science background, they wanted me to be, that's how I became a field engineer. They put me in the engineering department, and it was all about just strictly problem solving. Like, what happens if you're, 50 miles out to sea and the motor on the boat doesn't start anymore? It was using engineering processes to do workarounds on the motor, not just replace a part or, do what the local mechanic would do. So
Okay.
that I found very enjoyable was problem solving. Then when I went back to school, when I got out of the military 15 years later, when I did my entry exams, of course, I had to take calculus over again.
Right.
And, when your calculus is different when you're 18 versus when you're 42.
Yeah, of course.
So I really started to enjoy the problem solving because I wasn't doing it for a grade anymore. I was doing it because I knew, like, oh, I need to know this. And it changed for me as an adult because now I wanted to understand why I was doing what I was doing. And then when I started to apply it to real world situations, it was working. And I really got excited about, oh, wow, this matches. Like, this means something now. It wasn't just a memorize and regurgitate thing I had to take for a test. So what I'm getting mostly at DBC is seeing the people that come in with the more serious problems that went undiscovered for years. And to me, that's exciting, where it's like, okay, this person was told their career was over. They were told that this was just something that's normal. And, as I'm going through the assessment and I start to see common things, or I don't see common things, and then later when I had to look at the numbers, I'm like, I found it. And then when you go apply it to the athlete, and within a week or even 2 days, or maybe it's 3 months for some of the other people, and they're like, oh, hey, I haven't had knee pain for 2 weeks since I started with you, or my back pain went away after a couple of weeks. That to me is just such an exciting thing to happen, where I was able to discover the problem through this methodology using the biomechanics and the knowledge that I discovered or obtained through my education. That's really, really enjoyable to me.
Cool. Sounds good. Donnie, I personally care a lot, and already I'm trying to work here in the Middle East on lifting the educational standards in my home country and in the Arab world. What's Donnie's opinion on raising the bar and lifting the standards in the fitness industry? And how do you suggest that be implemented? Is it through improving the certification standards and lectures, educational backgrounds? Is it through spreading DBC certification across the Middle East? What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think anything, you have to have starter levels. So to me, the DBC levels, the DBC certifications are a little bit, you get more out of it if you have a great deal of experience in the industry.
Right.
Because there's, when we present the literature, you can learn from our DBC level 1, the mechanics behind squatting, lunging, bending, pushing, pulling, twisting, what that does to the joints, where the forces are, what the mechanisms of injury are, what the safest way to do it and the most efficient way to do it. You can get that as an introductory level trainer. But I think what's more helpful is the more experience you have, where you've heard the many different things and you've seen the different arguments, like, oh, this is the best way to squat. And some people have learned that during an introductory course. And the introductory course they didn't say anything that was incorrect. But, when you take Algebra 1, you learn later that Algebra 1 was a basic explanation of more complicated things, that now you learn more complicated one when you took Algebra 2. Right. Then when you get to trigonometry, some of the geometry you learned, you realize was basic. And then as you go up the chain academically, you learn things that the more advanced courses are just more detailed explanations of the things you learned at the lower courses. So I think where we have to go is we want to raise the bar. We want to raise the bottom line standard of the industry. So we want people to understand that there's a lot of things out there that if you don't have access to the education have been explained, but people are still arguing about them. So I think the more information we just give people to say, hey, look, there's, you can look at it this way at the basic level, but don't forget, it's like we talked about earlier, the introduction to biomechanics course was a very watered down version of what biomechanics actually is. So you can't use what you learned in the basic course as gospel for the way to do things, because it gets much deeper than that. And it just making people aware that it's much deeper. They can educate themselves. They can start reading journals that they didn't even know existed. So anywhere we go, I think just spreading information, whether you're DBC level certified or not, if you understand that it's a deeper level of knowledge out there, I think that's how it has to spread. So I think our certification courses, we've done, like, Jared has posted, for those who don't know Jared's our PhD mechanical engineer who was a former engineering professor, has backgrounds with helicopter design, aortic heart stent designs, etc. It took Jared and I 7 straight months to do the literature search on the DBC level 2 certification information. And a literature search is just going in and finding every paper written by every researcher, every medical professional, every anatomist that looked at all these issues of injury mechanisms, of, how sprained ankles happen, how chondromalacia patella shows itself. It took us 7 months to make sure we had the best information. And Jared said that this literature search that we did was more extensive than the literature survey he had to do to get his PhD.
Wow.
So, we kind of say, okay, yeah, some of the DBC courses are short, and they are introductory level to certain things. But what you got to realize is we screened all this information for you, so you can rest assured that when you come to DBC level 1 or level 2, you're going to be presented with the 50, 60, 70 references that we use, and an explanation of those references of why we do the things we want to do. So I think just knowing that when you read a scientific paper or you get information, you want to make sure it's referenced from somewhere and not just one reference. And you also want to make sure the reference is from the highest levels. So if you're reading a reference that was written by someone with a low-level degree, you have to understand that it may be valuable information, but you want to search for the higher level. So I think that's just knowing how to qualify your information and qualify your authors. You want to get the highest level of information, make sure it's reproducible, so you know that it's more likely that it's correct than it's not correct by someone who doesn't use any references, didn't perform a literature search, doesn't understand the practical side and the academic side. Then we'll get more powerful that way. We'll get more powerful information.
All right. Donnie, we reached the Miami Fitness Factory pick of the day part. You basically got 2 choices. I'll give you 2 choices. You pick one. You don't explain, please, until we reach the end. Then you give any extra explanation if you want to. Okay?
Sure.
So first, 2 choices are biomechanics or sports nutrition. That's easy.
Yeah, biomechanics.
Okay. DBC or your South Beach studio?
DBC, for sure.
Okay, David will like that. DBC level 1 or level 2?
That's a trick question. You need level 1 to go to level 2.
That's a clever answer. LeBron James or Dwayne Wade?
Not even touching that one.
Okay, last one is Dwayne Wade or Dwayne Wade. I mean, I'm biased for Dwayne Wade. That's why I put that question at the end. Yeah, I mean, those are definitely clients who can't take sides. But how does it feel to train either both the clients? And then if you want to clarify any of the choices.
Yeah. So when we talk about, Dwayne Wade or LeBron James, I have to be honest. Almost these guys are exceptionally nice people. Right. They have no egos, and it's just they do everything you say, and because they see when you explain it to them, they realize what's happening. So when you can explain it in a if you can point out what you found with their bodies and then prove it, or you can say, hey, look, don't do the squat that way, do it this way. Because we've had lots of athletes come in like, oh, I don't front squat because it hurts my knees. And then I say, okay, well, let me see your front squat. And they go to front squat, and it's like, wow, yeah, that would hurt my knees if I did that way too.
Right.
And you just show them mechanically why they should do it a different way, and then they can instantly front squat with no pain. They become very appreciative, and they start to trust you. But as far as comparing athletes, I haven't had an athlete yet that wasn't like the nicest, most generous, grateful person there is. So I just really found it that some of the criticism these guys get, or they want to know who's the better person, the hardest worker. I don't think there is a comparison between them, even though they're clients, and I didn't want to answer. I don't think there is a comparison between them. So everyone I've worked with so far has just been surprisingly nice, grateful, and just just happy to be working out, and happy that somebody was making them feel better.
Well, I guess nice coaches attract nice clients. So good for you then. Coach, what's some advice you'd give to young Middle Eastern coaches, strength coaches, or even athletes today to make it to the next level? And then what is the mindset, or that's crucial, the mindset or the attitude they need that makes them excel?
I think just because I feel like the profession's a little younger there. I think coaches like yourself, and we have some coaches in other Middle Eastern countries that it's a very young. So here in Miami especially, we're getting it is popular in California too. A lot of cities don't have the volume of personal trainers and personal training studios out there. So I think the boutique kind of personal training gyms that are popping up now, especially in the Middle East, I think are going to make huge strides in the next few years. But I want to caution people coming from a commercial gym where a lot of your clients come in because it's that gym. So I think the more education you can get as a trainer, if you're working at a large facility, the more successes you'll start to get. So when you start using mechanics for, say, some of your clients, even if you don't have the assessment yet, if you're just teaching your clients how to squat pain-free, or you're finding something mechanically that was causing them to have too much stress in their back, and you change it, and they start getting better, you'll start to be more popular and start to develop yourself as, oh, hey, I feel instantly better when I work out with this trainer. Then you can start to go into your boutique training, get your own gym, because you'll have more of a following. So the more clients you help, the more following you get, the more clients will come with you. And then people will start to be attracted to these boutique gyms because they're smaller, they're more private. And then there's also, you'll make more money there too. So the gym won't be taking a cut of your money. So when you have a private fitness studio, you get more clients that feel comfortable because of the atmosphere. You'll have more time to spend with a specific client because you don't have to do 10, 12 sessions anymore to make money. And you just start raising your own platform every single time. And then next thing you know, you have a huge following, and then you can start teaching people what you learn. It just gets, it accelerates the process much quicker because you don't have to see so many clients. You can spend more quality time with the clients. You can look up their issues. It's more personal. So I think right now, the field is fairly open for those huge strides to be made, especially in the Middle East right now, because it just seems to be, it's a little younger. And I think the time is right now to separate yourself, establish yourself, and the more success you have now will be exponentially broadcast out there.
I definitely agree on that. Coach, last thing, our slogan is trust the factory. Does Donnie Raimon trust the factory?
I do, because interactions with you, I know your education, I know your background. I would trust the factory because I've seen you in action. I know what's going on there. I know you're using the principles between all your backgrounds, not just what you learned here at DBC. So for sure, I trust everyone that's gone through one of our courses. Easy question.
Coach, I highly appreciate your time with us today. I mean, you talked, it was a real talk. You threw out fruitful information to all the fans and coaches and athletes out there in the Middle East or all over the world. I mean, it's great to see you. I wish I would have been able to go in March to your DBC level 2. You know, tough times we're passing through with the COVID-19, but I'll see you very soon, hopefully in Miami. Appreciate your time again and again. And last words.
Thank you for having me. Hopefully this will be all over soon and we'll get back to normal. And you're welcome anytime.
Thank you, Coach. Please send my regards to the whole team, especially Coach David and Matt. Matt is a good friend. Thank you, Coach.
Will do. Thank you.
Have a great day. See you. See you.